Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Analytics Mindset. This episode is going to be a little bit different as I'm going to be pivoting onto the PMI certifications, mostly focused on GenAI. There's a couple of reasons for that. Without going into much detail, I got the membership. I need to take advantage of the membership. Therefore, this series of videos that will probably be 3 to 5 is going to be focused on these courses, what I learned from them, and some tips if these courses are useful to you, if they might not be, and some part of my practical experience as well. The first course that I'm going to talk about is the data landscape of GenAI for project managers. As I mentioned before, this is provided by PMI. You are not going to find it anywhere else. And another little asterisk is that it's only available if you have the PMI membership. If you don't have the PMI membership, you will not be able to access it for free. That is a disclaimer before I keep going. Similar to DataQ, where you need the actual system. If you're thinking on taking the PMP or the CAPM or other PMI certification, then this is perfect because they give you a huge discount with your certification if you are a member, and this is just extra value added on top of that. That is my primary reason to take these little courses and also upskill myself. What is this course about? You can see here the actual Credly badge here. It's mostly to get the concepts around data and how it applies to GenAI models. The focus of PMI has always been about the project manager role. I may do a video about it in the future, and I have hinted it here and there, but it is a whole different or role than usual analytics as we discuss in this channel. It's all more focused on how do you operate projects, how do you bring projects from ideation to then actually executing the projects, and finally how do you follow up with those projects. If you're not familiar with project management, I will leave you a link to the PMI's definition of it and their homepage. That way it's a lot more useful to you and you can revisit this video later. This certification / course takes around 4 to 5 hours. That is how much they actually allocate for you to complete it. I honestly finished it in 3.5 hours, but again, I do have a lot of overlapping experience, both managing projects and GenAI as the Google Cloud certification, the AI leader. I'm gonna leave it somewhere here as well. You can see here it has the GenAI applications, generative AI tools, and the importance of data quality. It actually touches somewhat into the data governance concepts as well. You will have an assessment at the end that is only 25 questions, very easy, in my opinion. PMI offers a lot of other certifications tied to this one. But we are going to go into the actual course. Because obviously it's under PMI's copyright, I will not show you the actual content of it because I do not want to get into trouble. I will only show you the outline of the course, what I think of it. And then after that, just a little practical experience from my side and my personal recommendations. So first of all, the start here, that is an overview of the course. It tells you what it is, and as you can see, it's a very small video. I do not like this player. Personal tip, PMI's interface is pretty bad, at least for me to reproduce video, but it is just a 4-minute video introducing you to the course. Data Crash Course 1. We go into the basis of GenAI. You're going to go into how generative AI models actually work. It actually does go a little bit more in detail than I expected. Not as much, obviously, as the generative AI leader, for example, but it doesn't fall that much behind because it's still supposed to be roughly the same amount of time, around 4 to 5 hours. The difference is that the generative AI leader certification from Google is a proctored exam, and this is an open book exam. You will go into customizing LLMs. There is multiple ways you can customize it. How do you train them beforehand? How do you do RAG? How do you actually apply filters and guidelines? Then you go into the model selection development. How do you choose a GenAI model? Not all models are the same. Some models are used for multiple things. Some of them are better for one thing. A particular side of PMI is the focus on project management. Don't overthink it. Project management, in my experience, can mean a lot of other things that you would not consider traditional project management. You need to develop a dashboard, for example. That's a project. You may not think about it as a project, but PMI offers a very strong framework saying this is a project. It starts, you develop it, then it ends, and after that you need to either maintain it, dispose of it, or give it to somebody else as a handoff. Projects are everywhere. It's just a matter of how you see things. And as a reminder, a program is just a collection of projects at the end of the day. When you are actually part of a program or you're executing a program, a lot of the small tasks that you do are actually projects, especially if these tasks become bigger and longer. In my experience, a small ad hoc that could be, hey, give me this data pool or develop this system for me, can really become a very big project very easily. It happens more naturally than you will expect. And if you just go and think about your own line of work, you probably can relate to me on some small ask that you were like, yeah, this is just a small task. And then it just evolves into a full-fledged project. PMIs, especially the agile side, provides a good framework to how do you control this, how do you ensure that this project is successful. And probably the biggest part of it is how do you deliver quality. Quality usually means if it's a project for internal customer, how the internal customer sees your product. And if it's an external customer, obviously money. They are paying you. An external customer will actually pay you money to do something, and then contracting goes into place. Well, internal customers are a little bit more fizzy. That's more of my domain, but you will still need to deliver something. For GenAI, a lot of it, you are going to go into the role of data in GenAI systems. How do you clean the data? PMI also includes a lot of good links and good references that, again, I will not show here because I do not want to get targeted by them. Copyright is all for PMI, but they have good resources that I think are good if you do decide to invest in the membership. And some of them are academic, some of them are more short, sweet articles. It depends on your own. I did this mostly for the sake of learning. I took my time to read the extra content because at the end of the day, this is just added value to my membership. In Data Crash Course 2, you go into how data governance works in GenAI. And that's the part probably that I found the most novel, for me at least, where it establishes projects should be separate in the requirements. You should have certain data types, certain data classifications for one project and another project. Again, sometimes in the real world, we don't have time for do that. But in theory, if you want to ensure the most accurate training data and the best data quality, you need to tailor it to some degree. Not to the actual task individually, but sometimes it's good. Oh, I have this program that it's only on this geographical area. I don't need this data from, let's say, the the Asia Pacific, for example. If my project only concerns Europe, I only need to filter first for Europe data, then train my LLM and make sure that it's targeted to Europe. That's a perfectly valid approach, and we need to be conscious about that because that's where a lot of gaps happen when you have a project definition or the scope starts to be actually put together, and then the scope expands and you have scope creep, or even worse, you just don't know where to go through because the project was not well defined. That is an important part of being a project manager and very big emphasis from PMI. You will have the risks and limitations of data when you don't have enough data, how PMI also focuses a lot on when do you need to actually build something by yourself and when you need to actually buy it. In GenAI, this is very important because there's multiple vendors, there is multiple platforms, it's still evolving, it's a very novel side of information systems. Sometimes it's better to just buy of the shop solution. The best example of this is ChatGPT. A lot of people, when it first came over, they just used the free version, no customization whatsoever, because it was free and it's still free. But sometimes you need something better than that. Sometimes you need some more modifications. The pro version exists for a reason. Then you have the paid versions. You have more access to token limitations, APIs, all of that. Usually, the more commoditized something is, the cheaper it is, but the less focus on you, the less customizable it will be. And the other way around. The more expensive something is, the more customizable will be, or it will include some other premium features to attract you. You don't pay the premium for nothing. Where is the balance? It depends on the project. You do not really have a mantra, and if anybody tells you that buying always or building always is the best, they align to you. Projects can really vary from time to time. Sometimes you may need to just buy an off the shelf database and be like, well, that's all. Somebody creates a database for me. I give them my data requirements and it just pops up. And hey, I have a relational database. I have star schema. While other times you may want to just do it yourself. You may buy from a relational database provider or the big computing companies, cloud computing companies, Microsoft, AWS, and Google, and be, hey, give me the platform, I will develop the infrastructure by myself. Multiple considerations there to give some more value to this video. It does get quite into detail, especially this course on what criteria you should follow. Generally, when you buy something, you have less overhead on your side. Something is wrong. Hey, I need you to repair it for me. Think about it in your personal life. When you buy a computer, a lot of times, if it stops working, you will just go to manufacturer and say, can you fix it for me? Or to whoever sold it to you. Well, if let's say you install Ubuntu or a very, very intricate in the system, or you develop your own app, your own program, for example, you code it from scratch. It's only you. Nobody else knows. Nobody else is going to provide you support. Similar to that, when your phone receives an update, the actual operating system is managed by somebody else. If you install a very customizable app now, even though it's more difficult than before, you are the one that is going to be responsible for it. Multiple things like that. It is a very gray area. It really depends on what your needs are. The advantage of usually building stuff is that you have a lot more control through it, as I mentioned before, but you also develop expertise in-house. If you need that expertise for something else, let's say a dashboard, instead of subcontracting it to another company because they offered you good rates, for example, you decided to have your analytics team building it for yourself. You now have that experience of creating a dashboard in-house. The next dashboard you create will be easier. That's part of it. But again, it really depends on what your needs are, what the project is, how much time do you have, how much money do you have, and what the capabilities are in-house. But it is not as simple as I should always buy, I should always just get off the shelf, or I should always just build it myself. And a lot of these in GenAI specifically, because these large language models are so big, it's a big spectrum of you are not going to create an LLM by yourself. That is not really realistic. But do you really need RAG? Do you need to retrain the actual LLM? Can you just work with grounding? It really depends. All of these different adds on, and especially if you are a project manager or just manager for that matter, that makes decisions on purchasing or procurement, you're going to be making these decisions all the time. You're going to be assessing. We have this team of 5 people, and at the same time, we have these other subcontractors. Do we buy this? Do we build it? Do we need this LLM agent here? Who is going to maintain it? All those questions are things that you need to consider while working on the GenAI solutions for, again, either external customer or internal customer. The next part is the voice of the PM. That's a lot of practical reasons that basically tells you how actual practitioners use GenAI in the day to day. I will not go through that again because of copyright, but I will give some experience on my personal experience with GenAI. On my personal experience with the GenAI, especially in my domain, that is more on the infrastructural analytics, creating systems to provide both visibility and integrate different systems and reporting. GenAI is good as a coach to share ideas with. It's like this coworker that I can be, hey, I have this idea here, and then throw it back at me. That is my primary use for GenAI. I have this approach. I'm creating this table this way, partitioning by this, clustering by this. I'm putting these options. Do you think it's a good approach? Is there a better approach that I may not be seeing? I use it more for like confirmation that I am not missing anything in between. But that's my primary use of GenAI. I know there is a lot of other uses for it. These cases describe a lot on meeting minutes, for example. How do you get notes for when a meeting finishes and then share them with others? Microsoft Teams has an awfully good capability for that. You can synthesize topics, etc. That is just not my role. But for more traditional PM roles, for sure, that might be a good big part of your role. It can help you a lot with that. It can help you a lot with mining and do some basic NLP. Hey, can you tell me what were the more important parts here in this conversation? Oh, these meetings, for example. Microsoft Teams even can look at very different meetings through Copilot. You can say, look at all these meetings with this person or this team that I have had and tell me what are the common topics, what I may have missed. I was out this week, how this decision went through. All those things can be done through GenAI and it's pretty good for that. And PMI group makes a very good distinction that I actually like a lot between in the landscape, the automation side and the augmentation side. The automation side are things that GenAI can really take over for you. I do this very complex macro in Excel. GenAI, it's awfully good for that, especially if you have an actual scheduling and actual workflow. You can accelerate a lot of very repetitive analysis very quickly. The augmentation part mostly is about how you get GenAI to help you with things. As I said before, and I'm going to go back at it because this is a good opportunity to discuss it. When you need to make an executive decision, hey, do I need to go with this vendor or this other vendor? What are some considerations? Tell me the rates of the vendors that I have somewhere in my Outlook. Tell me what is, you can use the Microsoft Copilot Researcher Agent, for example, and you can tell it, do me a deep research of every single one of these companies, their financial stability. That's important. If your vendor goes bankrupt, that's one of the most basic business lessons. Then your vendor relationship is going to be strained because guess what? Bankrupt vendors usually cannot maintain their products. They may be acquired. That will be the best deal. Somebody, let's say, it's never going to happen probably in my lifetime, but if Oracle ever went bankrupt, I am pretty sure somebody will buy Oracle database and all the stuff coming in with it. There is no really any risk whatsoever. Somebody will grab them on and maintain it. But my point is, you need to have contingencies, you need to have risks, you need to see the positive risks when things are actually good for you, and the negative risks when the definition of risk is that you are in risk of something that is going to actually damage you. The next part of it will be on the data landscape canvas. I will not go that much into it, but it goes into the basis of machine learning. How can you determine your business problem? That's a big part of projects. You, in theory, should have a project charter that tells you what the actual project is and what's supposed to be doing. And a good part of it too is in modeling, there is this concept that when you actually write down things, no, I use write down very generally. When you actually sit and think about something, let's say an equation, you look at it, it helps you as a human a lot more than just going through as a thought. You can think, hey, what is the actual objective that I want to do with this problem? What is the need that we need to solve? After that, how can I ensure that this is actually met? Those are things that you, as a project manager, will do pretty often. Data governance, a lot on how do you govern data, how do you make sure, and PMI doesn't have, it references a lot of Microsoft documentation that we explore in the GenAI certification too from Microsoft, that AI should be responsible to some degree. You should be able to say this Gen AI solution is fair, it's not discriminating against anybody, and it's ready to use for its target. Collecting and assessing data. If your data is wrong or it's not clean, then if you train your model on it, or if you rack again, and not only train, but other techniques, customizing LLMs, I would call it for now on, then you're going to need to really clean the data, pre-process it before. Tokenization goes in, this course goes a little bit into tokenization. I discussed it in NLP before. It's just chunking stuff into tokens. So then you can pass them through the LLM and it can understand it, with the difference that the LLMs have a context window because they link your words together to predict what's the next thing that you're going to say. Model selection. There is a lot of LLMs there and more so to come probably. You have again the most popular ones, Gemini, big one, Copilot everywhere, Grok, etc. You can think of something, you will probably find an LLM. You then deploy the model. And the last part I want to touch in is the cultural adoption that sometimes gets lost in the forest. A lot of times you don't really think about it, but if people don't accept a new technology, then it's not really that useless. Tying back to analytics, think about it this time. For those of you that have built a dashboard, how many times you created this dashboard with all these filters, with all this nice data behind it, with all this design and these parameters, and then somebody is like, well, yeah, I just am going to download all the data behind it and filter it myself. If you know, you have gone through my pain there. If people don't use your tools, and this is something that I feel it's a little bit disregarding in Gen AI, if people just keep using Copilot and they don't use your fancy agent that you took 2 months to develop to do exactly the same thing just because Copilot is there in the Copilot app and your agent is in an obscure internal application, there is a problem then. You spend all that time for something. That's a big part of PMI's main, the PAM book, if you are going to go into that, that all projects should get some kind of value. It's not always all about money, but it should get some kind of value to either your sales team, your data quality team, somebody needs to benefit from the work that you're doing. Because if nobody benefits from it, there is not really a lot of justification for doing things. Doing things should be because you are doing them to actually justify your value. And more so than project management, that's more of a management nugget that I'm going to give you. You should always be ready career wise to justify your work. Why do I work here? Why do I get paid this salary? What specific things, or not even that, what general things I do that benefit this company in this way? You should be ready to answer that, especially if your company is either stagnant or declining, because if cost cutting comes into place, everybody will have a mental number on who is the most exposable. Again, sometimes decisions are obscure, but it's always good to have in the back of your mind. This is how I collaborate to this company, nonprofit, etc. organization. Just keep that in mind, and that's going to help you too when you're interviewing or when you're presenting yourself in a professional setting, because you can say, I do this, and this helps this organization this way. And that is a lot stronger than say, I create fancy dashboards all day, or I stare at SQL queries and correct them all day. For going to more, let's say, airline stuff. I look at airline metrics all day and then flag when they are red. Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but you can rephrase it as I look at these KPIs I know that's the jargon, key performance indicators on the aviation industry, and then notify leadership if this is a big risk or not. That's a big cost avoidance and ties it a lot better than just saying, hey, I do this. That's all I do for a living. I'm not going to touch that much onto this, but then you have the AI tool library. PMI Infinity Chatbot is pretty useful, and if you have a membership, it comes with it. It is a hidden gem that I actually find very good on it. And you can see there it refers ChatGPT, Dart 3.5, Copilot, Gemini, Grok, etc. That's pretty much it. Again, a very small certification. It has 25 questions I will show you, but I'm pretty sure PMI may not be good with me leaking this because, again, it's not, you cannot access it unless you're a member, unfortunately. But yeah, if you're thinking on getting a PMP certification, the most popular by far, I'm actually thinking of getting it eventually too, or any other PMI certification. From my perspective, these and all the other member-free courses are not bad. Plus, they are not going to prepare you for the PMP. You need to study for that for sure. But it is a good addition to get you familiarized with how PMI sees things, and you may have experience with it. You just don't know the terminology. Or the vocabulary, especially on the real practitioner side, that's how PMI calls its members that have an active certification, practitioners. You get different industries. For example, the case studies again that I do not want to show because copyright, go into the healthcare industry. That is something that I'm not familiar with, as I am more into the retail transportation side of things. There was some of it too onto the other side of the globe in the Middle East. That's a whole different dynamic than in the US. And those little things. It's good to have different perspectives, especially if you, for example, my network really doesn't go to the other side of the world in the Middle East. But it's good to have a perspective and see from somebody that actually works on something like that related how they manage projects, how does it differ from how you manage, how your organization manages, or how your country manages. Different countries have different cultures, and it's always good to just get more familiar with it. PMI, fortunately, is a global it's a global organization. But yes, as always, feel free to leave any comments or concerns. Yeah, any tips, leave a like if you want, and leave a comment. And there is a lot more coming on AI, the PMI coming into this channel. Thank you. Have a good day.